Welcome to this week's edition of New Money here on CCTV News. I'm Michael Wong. Brick and mortar bookstores. Many say that they're a dying breed heading towards extinction. Outcompeted by online booksellers in terms of price and convenience, is there still a market for physical bookshops? Join us this week as we explore Belencre Bookstores and One Way Street as they aim to bring online book buyers back offline.
This is neither a concert hall nor a classroom. It's a bookstore. Events such as this ukulele workshop are among the many ways in which Belencre Bookstores attracts customers. The chain earns only 40% of its revenue from selling books. The rest comes from its cafe area and events. Belencre has opened 15 stores in just 4 years thanks to this business model. However, theirs is a rare success story. Like everywhere in the world, bookstores in China are finding it hard to compete with online retailers.
Barnes & Noble may put itself up for sale. Quarterly losses were $63 million.
Amazon opened in the United States in 1995 and quickly became the country's largest online retailer. 5 years later, Amazon was outperforming the biggest American bookstore, Barnes & Noble. A similar battle is taking place in China. Dangdang.com began operations in 1999 and quickly became the biggest online bookstore in China. Chinese online retailer JD.com launched its own online bookstore in 2010 as Dangdang was about to go public, and that triggered an ongoing price war. Online retailers attract customers through low prices and have the financial resources to keep pushing prices even lower. Low prices wasn't an option for China's bookstores because they were already struggling with dwindling sales.
They're just too cheap. The online retailers are so big. They can give 60 to 70% discounts. They sell some of their books for less than we buy them for. They sell directly to the end customer, but I have to buy from a supplier, and each link in the supply chain has to make a profit. The profit should be relatively evenly distributed, but the arrival of online retailers has messed up the entire price structure.
One of Beijing's cultural landmarks, the Fengrusong Bookstore, went bankrupt in 2011 and was soon followed by the popular O2 Sun bookstores. It was against this tough backdrop that Belencre Bookstores opened its doors. Chen Xiaomin is the woman behind Belencre, and Chen believes bookstores have certain characteristics that can never be completely replaced by online retailers.
There's definitely a demand for the atmosphere you find in a good bookstore. It's just that traditional bookstores don't offer enough services, and that's why they're being displaced by the websites.
In 2011, one of the world's largest booksellers, Borders, filed for bankruptcy. Aside from the costs of maintaining a physical presence, Borders was not able to compete with the new trend of buying books online, which offers a much steeper discount versus their brick-and-mortar counterparts. The bankruptcy is a stark lesson for all booksellers who still maintain a physical shop. Joining me to talk about China's Belencre Bookstores and One-Way Street is Professor Jia Ning, Deputy Director at the China Business Case Center at Tsinghua University. Professor, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So let's talk about the overall book distribution business here in China first. Belencre, obviously a commercial bookshop, it's a brick and mortar shop. That's certainly one book distribution channel. What are some of the other major competitors and players in this space?
Right. Well, there are essentially three major types of book distribution channels. Currently, the single largest one is the Tsinghua Bookstore, which is a state-owned enterprise. So Tsinghua Bookstore basically enjoys this unparalleled advantage of strong brand name, a long operating history, a wide variety of book offerings, as well as a wide national coverage. And the second major book distribution channel are those offline commercial bookstores that includes Belencre, as you just mentioned. So compared with Tsinghua Bookstores, they typically operate on smaller scales. They have more limited book supplies, but because they're commercial entities, so they tend to be more market-oriented. So they respond faster to changing market environment. And also they tend to have higher operating and management efficiency. And the last major book distribution channel include those online book retailers, as well as those smaller bookshops that you see, for example, at the airport or at the subway stations, which are emerging very quickly in the last several years.
So, Professor, I mentioned Borders at the beginning of the program. One of the largest booksellers previously in the world. It's bankrupt now at 100,000 titles in each of its physical locations, nearly 20,000 employees. And in our story, our report, we also mentioned the bookstore Fengrusong here in Beijing, previously a cultural landmark. It also went bankrupt in 2011. And this store was actually located near many major universities here in Beijing as well, so close to many, many students. And yet it couldn't survive either. Give us the rundown in terms of the offline challenges that physical bookstores now face.
Sure. I think the offline bookstores are facing a number of challenges. One is that people are changing their reading habits. Given how busy people are becoming with their lives, very few people can still enjoy the luxury of taking the day off and read a book. I think most people instead would choose to read books using fragmented times, when they're waiting for the elevators or when they're commuting to and from their work. And also, I think with the e-books coming out, people are switching gradually from reading paperbacks to reading using electronic devices, which is in direct competition with those conventional offline bookstores. And also, I think another challenge is the rise of the e-commerce, right, which is taking a significant market share away from the offline bookstores, right? And more importantly, I think because these online stores, because they don't have to maintain any physical stores, so they are able to offer their online customers a very attractive pricing, and this is something that offline bookstores just cannot compete with, right? So this leads to the third challenge of the offline bookstore, which is the rising operating costs, because these conventional bookstores are still the traditional sort of brick and mortar retailers, so they still have to pay rents, pay off their employees and all facility-related expenses, and we know that these expenses, at least in China, have been increasing actually faster than the revenue growth in the bookstore market. So it's actually more and more difficult for these traditional bookstores to break even and to make profits.
So I think out of all the challenges that you mentioned for offline bookstores right now, the e-commerce one has to be the biggest, I feel, because in terms of price competition, these e-commerce online booksellers are also having a price war against each other, making the prices even lower. So very, very tough uphill battle for these physical brick and mortar booksellers. All right, so the founder of Belencre Bookstores is confident that there are certain experiences, though, in buying a book from a physical store that can never be replicated by buying it online. Up next, we'll explore Belencre's strategy in tapping into these special experiences while avoiding competition on price.